Foundation piecing has been around for a long time. I don't even know how long. And flying geese are a very traditional block that can be used in many, many different ways. The quilt behind me is kind of contemporary, and I had fun designing this for you. And I laid it out with some negative space. But you can also use flying geese blocks in borders. Pillows, I have some samples to show you in a little while, but it's a really, really great way to start with your foundation piecing, and a good way to master, and then once you know how to do it, you can do it and use it in so many different ways. And I do want to also tell you that, to clarify, we're talking about foundation paper piecing, and a lot of people get that mixed up with English paper piecing. English paper piecing is handwork, also with paper, but foundation piecing is actually using this foundation paper. The paper that I'm using today comes in a stack. This will fit in your home inkjet printer. So I just put this right in my printer and I copied it. You can also go to a copy center if you don't have access to it and print out as many blocks as you want. So it's a little bit lightweight and it's kind of like a newsprint. So it tears away easier. When we're all done, we're going to tear this away. I love all fabric, and my choices for projects change with the seasons. I just love it all. So sometimes I like a modern bright print, and other times I like something that's a little more calming and peaceful, and it really depends on what I'm making my project for. And you can use anything that you want. We just want to talk a little bit about having some contrast so that you do see the geese. So if you are using a light background, like I'm using the light gray, I'm going to be choosing bright geese, but you could also use a dark, or you could use a medium, or anything that's going to show up as a contrast. If you are using, and on the opposite, you can use a dark background and choose lighter colors as your geese. So anything that's going to make your triangles, your geese, show up and kind of stand out, and what we like to use the word pop off. So that's what we're going to be doing, is really kind of choosing our fabrics that way. When you go to make your patterns, I am going to use this foundation piecing paper that is thinner than copy paper, and copy paper is going to be harder to rip off when you're done piecing. I'm going to talk when we get ready to sew about our sewing and about perforating the paper, because I love the end when you have to rip off the paper. Some people don't like that, but I could just sit by the television with all my blocks and just pull the paper with the garbage can next to me, and it's really peaceful. So you're going to want to make sure that you have a paper that is going to pull off easy. The newsprint type pads of paper that kids will color on is readily available at most craft stores and discount chain stores, and of course the foundation piecing paper you can find in most of the sewing stores, and of course quilt shops as well. If you can't get them to fit through your printer, by all means you can use a light box or a light background and just trace it with a pen. Anything to get your pattern onto your paper. You can even draft your own, and we're going to be talking about proportions and enlarging and reducing the geese to make a pattern that is suitable for any project that you want to use. So you can even use a ruler and your cutting mat and draft your own. So there's a lot of ways to get our pattern, but we're going to start, the easiest way of course is to make some copies on the photocopier or on my printer. I will tell you that when I first started foundation paper piecing, sometimes I made a few boo-boos. It's really common, and that's how we all learn. So sometimes I've been known to sew upside down, and that's okay. That's what the seam ripper is for. So go ahead and make your copies, and then we're going to cut our fabrics into the pieces that will cover where we're going to be sewing. So I'm going to put these aside, and I'm going to take some of my fabric and I'm going to cut them into rectangles. Now when we're cutting our fabrics, you can cut pieces you want them to be completely filling the area that we're going to be covering. And again, when we start sewing, it'll be a little clearer to understand. You can even use scraps. They don't have to be as precise. Cut like you do when you're actually just piecing together, not foundation piecing, because we're going to be trimming away excess. So if you have scraps that will cover the area, it's a good project to use up your little bits and pieces.